Abdallah, what I thought about when I read the piece, and it's so brilliant in its grounding in the rule of law and what's been lost. It's not just our founders who would be, I think, horrified at what has been sort of perverted and distorted, but you don't have to even go back that far. You look at Watergate, where Republicans were able to be compelled by facts of criminality. And it seems that that is where our current laws and policies do not serve any commitment to the rule of law.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Nicolle, and thanks for having me on. You know, with Watergate and Richard Nixon, there's especially one key difference between that and the Trump era, and that's the ability to feel shame. One thing that allowed Trump to get away with so much is that he was utterly shameless and just pushed through all the, norm breaking and law breaking, acts of his White House and all the investigations and just, power through it. And he got away with it. And so that's why this is really important to still go after, even after he's out of office. I understand that a lot of Americans want to move on from Trump and never look back. I mean, it was a very norm-breaking, norm-busting time. Each day presented, as you very well know, a new crisis or two, and it was incredibly overwhelming. But, we can't just move on from the Trump era without studying exactly what went wrong and how it went wrong. And if we do that, that would be profoundly irresponsible. We were shown that there are loopholes in our constitutional system. We've been shown just how weak our checks and balances are against a tyrannical president. And so it's our obligation as journalists, as voters, as lawmakers in Congress to actually address that and fix that. And that's really why we wrote this series, to urge lawmakers, beyond the DOJ prosecuting Trump if they have enough evidence, but to urge lawmakers to pass a set of reforms to restrain future presidents from abusing their power. And if Congress fails to do that, then the end of American democracy is in our lifetime. And I don't say that just to, be hyperbolic or alarmist about that. I say this because, already we're seeing the erosion of American democracy accelerate after Trump left office, in state after state after state, with Republican legislatures, just going after our voting rights, and Congress, with the help of Joe Manchin, refusing to protect us and refusing to protect voting rights. And so the next Trump, and I want to be very clear about this, the next Trump, that could be Trump himself in 2024 or a far more competent authoritarian leader, will have a much easier time usurping American democracy, because right now the roadmap has been laid out for them very clearly.
And you will be one of the people, if that happens, who, whoever comes down and discovers the remnants of this era in time capsules, who predicted it and saw how it was all going to play out. I want to read some more from from the really important editorial. You guys write this: after the precedent-busting, law-breaking presidency of Donald Trump, Congress needs to pass new laws to constrain future office holders. That's the case the Globe has made in this series: curbs on pardon power, safeguards against nepotism, broadening the power of Congress to investigate the president, protections for whistleblowers, requirements that presidents make financial disclosures to root out conflicts of interest. All of that is crucial to protect Americans against a repeat of the last 4 years. Abdullah, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to come back, because I think we need to dive into every single one of these separately. But let's just take a couple: pardon power and nepotism. And I'm actually surprised he didn't combine the two there in the end. There was some reporting that he might. Placing his son-in-law and daughter inside that inner sanctum, that was the story that repeated itself with every chief of staff. That was the obstacle to having any semblance of ethical or lawful conduct inside the West Wing. And Reince Priebus, I can't even remember all the chiefs of staff, John Kelly. I mean, they tried in varying degrees to get this president to sort of adhere to some of the norms. I won't even say rule of law. It's not clear they had that much sway with him. But it would be very easy we can do something about this. I mean, it's not a prosecute Donald Trump for obstruction for being named individual one in SDNY for the criminal campaign finance case that sent Michael Cohen to jail. It's not a matter of looking forward or looking back and, oh, we choose the future. You can choose a future where the president's corrupt and unqualified son-in-law and daughter don't run the country. Do you think there's any enthusiasm behind passing nepotism laws or curbs to a president's pardon power?
Well, thanks for that question. This is something we wanted to make clear throughout the series. Reforming and restraining future presidents ought to be a bipartisan cause. This isn't a partisan issue. Corruption doesn't know a single party. The next Trump might be a Democrat. Obviously, the two parties aren't equal, and there's an asymmetry in which one actually wants to abandon democracy, and that's the Republican Party. So it's likely that the next tyrant will be a Republican. But it's very possible that a corrupt president be a Democrat, and so Republicans ought to be very interested in restraining future presidents from abusing their power. Otherwise, they'll be as well locked out of the system, and we will see American democracy end. So nepotism is a really important one when it came to Donald Trump's presidency. I mean, the American people suffered. One thing we said in the series was that our government survived a scrape with authoritarianism. But the reality is many of us didn't survive. By some estimates, nearly 1 million Americans died from the coronavirus pandemic. And that's in part because Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, was, leading in part of the leadership behind the government's coronavirus response team with no prior experience. He was a real estate businessman. What was this guy doing leading our pandemic response? And now hundreds of thousands of lives are lost. And those people will not get a second chance. For those of us who remain and are lucky enough to still vote, we have to act on this now. If we don't, then it's really urgent to do it now. If we don't, we're going to see another authoritarian come and even improve on Trump's ability to undermine democracy within our lifetime, maybe even by 2024.